Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the WNW 191, the weekly news wrap up for Friday, May 22nd, 2015, and the banks have done it again. They've committed massive global fraud and have cut a deal where nobody goes to jail and they just pay fines. And listen, folks, this is making it on the front page of USA Today. Brazen banks to fork over $5 billion in FX fines. Actually, it's a little closer to $6 billion, 5.8 billion. Some reports have it at $5.8 billion total between all these big banks. There's a picture of the banks involved. I mean, Barclays, J.P. Morgan, Citigroup, UBS, RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, Union Bank of Switzerland. All these banks are involved in some way, shape, or form with the Forex market, rigging the currency market, the Forex market. This is a $5.8 billion total fine, according to one report, in a market that trades at about $5.3 trillion market a day. $5.3 trillion a day market. And these banks have agreed to settle criminal charges, but nobody goes to jail. They avoided criminal prosecution. So the bank is now convicted. So J.P. Morgan, the bank, is now a felon. Citigroup is now a felon. Not the people running it, but the banks are criminals. According to this, I mean, no person is a criminal. Nobody got a criminal charge. And they're paying the banks are paying all these fines, which means shareholders are paying the fines. Shareholders are paying the fines. I talked to my friend Gregory Manarino at TradersChoice.net. He was a former floor trader at Bear Stearns, and he put this into perspective for me. He said, this is nearly $6 billion in a market that's a $5.3 trillion a day market. I said, amen to that, brother. But then he brought in this, and he says, listen, this is a show. This is like a little kabuki time. And here's his quote: there's a need to keep confidence in the financial system. So there's a need to make it look like, oh, wow, there's a cop on the beat, when in fact it's lawless. And these fines are a diddly squat. He said, you pay, $5.8 billion, $6 billion. What do they base that fine on? Of course, they don't say what they based it on. He says, for all you know, they could have made $600 billion between them doing this. This is a $5.3 trillion a day market. And once again, this time they did get some criminal charges. The banks did. No individuals did. The banks did. So I guess a Citigroup can't own a firearm now. I guess J.P. Morgan Chase, the bank, can't vote anymore. That's how ludicrous this is. It's absolutely outrageous that nobody goes to jail. And, guess what? And here's another one. Incidentally, in the last story, UBS avoided criminal prosecution because they were a whistleblower and they cooperated with the Justice Department, right? Well, guess what's going to happen for UBS once again? And this time it's in the gold and silver market. UBS shielded from charges in U.S. precious metals probe. What do you think that spells out? This is the same type of thing that happened with the Forex charges. Before the Forex charges, UBS came out and said, all right, we'll tell you everything we know. And but we have to agree not to charge us criminally. And here we are again with the gold and silver market, precious metals market, and they're going to do a criminal probe on this, and UBS is going to be their point bank on this. I almost said point person, but, in this case, they're going to be the point person, and it wasn't that long ago that if you talked about the rigging of the gold market, people just went crazy. Tinfoil hat. Oh, you're crazy. Oh, the rigging gold and silver aren't rigged. Well, a lot of evidence that shows they are rigged, and we're going to get the crescendo case here with the Justice Department and UBS rolling over on all their buddies and blowing the whistle on the rigging of the precious metals market, gold and silver market, and this is why I'm leading with this instead of the Middle East, which I'm going to talk about, and all the other stuff. You got to grasp this, okay? So UBS was also involved, along with some of these other big banks and some other ones, were involved in the LIBOR rate rigging case. That's, the London Interbank Offered Rate, where they set hundreds of trillions of interest rates off the LIBOR. They paid fines, and they also had, and it talks about it, in this story here, about having a no prosecution deal, for the LIBOR thing, and they have a no prosecution deal, with this Forex case, and this is reported on the front page of the newspaper. The LIBOR thing also was widely reported. So let's see, you've got the currency markets rigged. Okay, so that means the dollar's rigged. That means in part the U.S. bond market's rigged. That you got the LIBOR market, the interest rate market, which means that helps all interest rates, including the U.S. Treasury market. That's rigged. So LIBOR, rigged. Forex, currency markets, rigged. Gold and silver, just count it, rigged. That means the stock market, if interest rates were allowed to default higher, the stock market would plummet. That's rigged, in part. That's certainly rigged. So the commodities market, I had Chris Powell from GATA on here saying, in the 10K into 2013, that they said they gave volume discounts to central banks. Volume discounts to trade in the commodities markets. That's rigged. So grasp this, folks. This is stuff that is reported in the mainstream press. One fine after another, and nobody in the White House press corps, nobody in the USA Today, nobody in the money section says, hey, what gives? Why not any criminal prosecutions? What's going on? I mean, what do you have to do to go to jail? You can launder money for drug cartels, no jail time. You can launder money for countries on the terror list, the state sponsor of terror list, that'd be Iran. That'd be other countries, no jail time. Forex market rigging, no jail time. LIBOR rigging, no jail time. Gold and silver rigging, no jail time. No jail time. How screwed up and how tenuous and how fragile does the global financial system have to be propped up by massive fraud? Let that sink in, folks. Massive fraud documented in mainstream press, and it's pay a fine. Oh, it's okay. Yeah, just a fine. J.P. Morgan, the bank itself is a criminal. RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, the bank, not any of the people in it. Just the bank's a criminal. Citigroup, a criminal bank. A criminal, but nobody in it. How fragile do things have to be for all the markets to be propped up by fraud? Rob Kirby came out this week, and when you first heard it, you think, what, huh? And he says, the markets are a crime scene. All the markets are a crime scene. Yep. Yes, they are. All the markets are a provable crime scene. If things are that criminal and that out of whack, what could go wrong? And the answer is everything. Here's another story, same newspaper, and we have this idea about there's a recovery crammed down our throats. There is no real recovery, and when you talk about raising interest rates, they can't. I've had guest after guest after guest, including Greg Manarino. I've had multiple. They can't raise rates. They raise rates. They're going to crash the economy. So here's the story on the front page. Look at the way they spun this. USA Today. June rate solid. Fed hints. Oh yeah, like this is a positive story. The economy is so good that they can't raise interest rates. And listen, here's this headline here, and in the first paragraph of this story, and I'll tell you, the U.S., according to the USA Today, they can't raise rates because, quote, the economy's recent sluggish performance. There is no recovery, and the Fed knows it. They know there is no recovery. In order for you to have near 0% Fed funds rate and all this fraudulent rigging of every market there's no, to prop it up, there's no recovery. Things are not recovering. It'd be one thing if all this, money printing and market rigging was actually making the market take off. Oh, incidentally, the housing market, if the LIBOR rate's rigged, that's another market that's rigged, the housing market. Let me just throw that in there. Every market is rigged. That's how they set 30-year mortgages in some cases, the LIBOR market, and also the Treasury market. But still, you rig LIBOR, everything else kind of falls in line, doesn't it? And so there is no recovery. And all these problems around the world have a financial basis to them, a lack of resources. The money's sour, the resources are scarce. This is all a fight over money and resources, and the economy. Whether it's Ferguson, these people are angry because they don't have any money. Look at Baltimore. That whole anger is going on because people aren't doing well financially, and then we want to blame it on the police. The people that did this, as I've been saying, the bankers, the politicians know this is going on. Don't think for 1 minute the politicians on every continent don't know this is going on. They know what's going on. And then we have to find some scapegoat. Oh, we're going to indict 6 police officers in Baltimore. They're going to have an awful hard time convicting those folks, I think. I mean, I'm not saying they did everything right, but they're going to have you're going to find out. You're going to find out it's not going to be an easy conviction, even though they just got a grand jury to press charges on these 6 police officers, half of which are black. Baltimore is run by Democrats. The mayor, the police chief, the prosecutor, black, Democrat, all of them. So it can't be the Republicans, and it can't be racism. So, I mean, it's going to be a tough deal, but all this stuff comes back to a negatively spiraling downward economic situation, not just here in America, but around the world. And listen, a crisis was averted off the coast of Yemen. The Iranians have yielded to UN inspections of a cargo ship bringing humanitarian relief to the Houthis in Yemen. And Saudi Arabia was saying that they're going to attack that ship. A few weeks ago, when they sent a cargo ship with humanitarian aid, the U.S. was going to board it or sink it or something. They sent an entire carrier group to intercept this ship. So they were serious. And now the Iranians have decided to yield to UN inspection. So hopefully crisis averted. But not so good in the rest of Iraq, I'll tell you that. Here's a headline out of Iraq, and it's I'm surprised they were this bold. Ramadi route shows limited U.S. advisory status. Oh yeah, that's right. We're doing about a couple of bombing missions a day. When if you're really serious, we'd be doing 800 to 1,000 a day, according to a lot of the military people I've heard talk on television. That this is not working. Ramadi gone, poof, bye. Another headline: Islamic State. This is in Iraq. This is in Syria. Islamic State, ancient town of Palmyra. That's in Syria. And of course, you know what they do to the archaeological and all the precious, priceless antiquities. They take a sledgehammer to them or blow them up with explosives or whatever. That's another. The policy is failing. Then also, not failing for the U.S. and the Obama administration and for the what's left of the Iraqi government, but it's working for ISIS because the retreating Iraqi forces abandon U.S. equipment, like Humvees and tanks and ammunition and weapons, and they get resupplied right there on the battlefield. But, President Obama, who gave a speech to the Coast Guard graduates this week, you know what his number one priority is? I kid you not, folks. Here's the headline. Yep, global warming is his top security threat. Climate change. Yeah, got to do something now, according to him. That's his words. We have to do something now, fast, now. Got to do it now. Not that they're beheading and killing people in Iraq and Syria and... We've got all this strife, with Yemen and war with Saudi Arabia going after the Al-Qaeda offshoot, and also the Houthis, which they're scared to death of because they are partial to the Iranians. It's a huge total mess. And then we find out this week that after the Bin Laden raid, that they got some major intelligence. Where they whacked Osama bin Laden. They got all kinds of documents. One report, more than 1 million documents. And there's a lot of stuff in there. Released some of them. Some of the stuff we found out was pretty shocking. I mean, stunning. That we found out that Iran, which is Shia, has according to these Bin Laden documents, has a major alliance built up with Al-Qaeda, Sunni. What? Excuse me? The documents have documented proof that Al-Qaeda is teamed up with Iran. The Sunnis have teamed up with the Shia, the Iranians. What? Are you kidding me? But here's how the USA Today told us this was their big headline on the front page. I mean, this is almost laughable. Bin Laden bookshelf, love stories and a study in vanity. You got to be kidding me, folks. A study in vanity, a love story. I mean, the headline should have read here. I've got something written down right here. The headline should have read, Bin Laden intel shows Iran, Al-Qaeda working together for years. How about that? How about that for a headline? Bin Laden intel shows Iran and Al-Qaeda working together for years. I'll tell you one thing. I think the Iranians are just about as nutty as the U.S. Why? Well, think about this. Now, I've been telling you how the U.S. is against the Iranians in Syria, and we're backing, the moderate rebels, which in part Al-Qaeda. And this Al-Qaeda is an offshoot that created ISIS. And now the Iranians are fighting ISIS, and we're helping the Iranians with bombing missions and sorties. Not many of them, but we're helping the Iranians fight ISIS, an offshoot of Al-Qaeda. But the Iranians, they're working with Al-Qaeda, and they're fighting ISIS, and they're working with the Houthis in Yemen, but yet they're supporting Al-Qaeda, and there's Al-Qaeda in Yemen, which is this big, three-way going on between Saudi Arabia, Al-Qaeda, an offshoot of Al-Qaeda, and the Houthi rebels, and they're just as crazy as we are, and it's just as convoluted. But wouldn't this have been nice to have been out there for the American public to digest, to say, wait a minute, you're cutting a nuclear deal with Iran, and you've known for years with this Bin Laden intel that they have an alliance with Al-Qaeda? Huh? What? And the newspaper, makes it out like, oh, Bin Laden had some love letters. Look, folks, if you just read this, if you just read the headline, you think, oh, isn't that sweet? Osama bin Laden had a sweet side to him. He loved one of his wives, and that was the apple of his eye, and that was so sweet and beautiful and pretty. Unbelievable. Talk about a lie by omission. Finally, I just want to bring up this. China is once again warning the U.S. to back off. This time, a U.S. spy plane was warned several times to leave, to go. The spy plane, of course, is flying surveillance missions in what has always been known as international waters. But China now says a big chunk of the South China Sea it belongs to China. And they're building islands out there, with sand. They're building bases in the middle of the South China Sea. And we've got ships in the area. We've had a spy plane, I'm sure, taking photographs and gathering intelligence of what they're doing. That they're telling us to back off. Now, this is a large creditor. I think a couple of weeks ago, I said it was the biggest. I think Japan has edged them out. Still, they're a big U.S. creditor. What would happen if we got into it? Would they just sell all those treasury bonds? Would we just default on all those treasury bonds? What do you think would happen with all this fraud propping up the economy? It'd be poof to the financial system. Thank you very much for supporting USA Watchdog. I appreciate that. Thank you for your comments. That really makes the site. And your donations. They help us greatly. I'm Greg Hunter. Fear not. Prepare yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually. Fear not, folks. God's in charge.